let me explain to you kind of what happens. So every single human being on this planet is a drug addict. We just don't know the drug that we're addicted to. You know, the person in your life that makes you feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, like you have to edit every single word. You have to physically shape shift your entire personality just to keep them happy. And if you don't do that, you walk away from every conversation with those people feeling like you just completely failed at connecting with them. It causes you anxiety and it makes you feel exhausted. I used to have people like that in my life. It makes you tired of feeling ignored, tired of feeling like a fraud in those conversations. And so this past summer, I ran across a pile of human psychology books and some emotional behavior manuals, and I just started reading them. As I buried myself in these books and going down this late night rabbit hole, I began slowly to start putting to practice some of these emotional behavioral methods that some of these books were suggesting. It kind of just became an experiment for me. It was interesting. But what I uncovered in some of these books, it has reshaped some of my fundamental understanding of why people do what they do. Just understanding of human nature, right? As it turns out, that desperate feeling of needing to please people and all of the frustrating behaviors that we see in people every day, like constant complaining or attention seeking or extreme posturing, those are not always just personality flaws. Many times these are literal physiological addiction. When I read that, I sat back in my chair completely stunned. And, I'm like, okay, this is a bunch of mumbo jumbo. But let me explain to you kind of what happens. So every single human being on this planet is a drug addict. We just don't know the drug that we're addicted to. So here's the science of what's actually going on inside of our bodies and how those intelligent manuals mapped it out as I was reading through them this summer. So here's what happens. Your brain naturally produces these tiny chemical messages called neuropeptides, and they're short sequences of amino acids. And there's a guy named Chase Hughes who he wrote a book called the Ellipsis manual. He describes these little twisted, he describes these neuropeptides like little twisted paper clips made out of protein. So when you experience a dominant social or emotional need, such as like the need for pity or approval or strength, your brain, it literally floods your nervous system with these neuropeptides. So they travel through your bloodstream searching for your cells, and your cells have these tiny microscopic docking stations on them called receptor sites. Now, you can think of receptor sites like a high-tech docking bay on a spaceship. These docking bays are shaped to only accept one specific neuropeptide key. If an approval neuropeptide tries to, let's say, dock into a strength docking station, no bueno, no luck. It simply won't fit. Here's where the biology gets very interesting. If you spend years operating under one dominant social need, let's say that person in your life, let's say that they grew up feeling unseen and they developed a massive daily habit of seeking approval or pity. Well, their cells notice that the approval or pity docking station bays are getting all of the chemical traffic. So their cells actually start to rebuild themselves. They go in and they destroy the docking bays for other chemicals to make room for the ones that are getting the most traffic, and they replace them with more and more of the ones that they crave. Well, over time, their cells become completely covered in these specific receptors. So their body becomes physically and chemically habituated to that specific emotional cocktail. Their cells are now physically dependent on it. So if they go a day or two, let's say, without that emotional fix, they throw a biological tantrum inside of their own brain, and they're begging for those chemicals. This is what they've been feeding it all of this time, and their body is craving it. So because their body is in physical withdrawal, their subconscious mind is forced to manufacture a social scenario to trigger that chemical release. Now, their brain will literally force them to act out or to walk on eggshells or to complain or do something like that just to get that hit of neuropeptides. So I began to look around and start seeing this going on in people around them, or people around me, rather. And so I realized that that person that makes me feel anxious, that causes me anxiety, wasn't necessarily doing it because they hated me. They might, but not necessarily. Their cells were quite possibly just in physical withdrawal, and they were subconsciously manipulating the conversation to get that chemical fix that their body was craving. And so suddenly I started looking around and seeing this go on. I started realizing that in many cases, we're walking pharmacies, right? Subconsciously manufacturing this drama or this situation to feed our own cellular addictions. Take the pity need, for example. In his manual, Chase Hughes describes a person who is chemically addicted to sympathy. This person might take a break from their desk and walk to the office break room, and they'll wait for a coworker to walk in. And the second that someone does, they will launch into this tirade about how terrible the morning traffic was, or how bad their back pain is, how unfair the situation of their home is, how unfair their boss is being. Now, if the person that walked in the room tried to offer a logical solution to their problem, such as taking a different route to work because of the traffic, or maybe they know a good chiropractor that can help them with their back pain, they'll get brushed off immediately. And the reason for that is because the original person doing the complaining, they don't want a solution. They're not looking for logic. If you solve the problem, well, that conversation will end and they'll lose their target, but their cells are still screaming for sympathy. They still need for someone to look at them in their sad eyes and say, you know what, that sounds so horrible. I'm so sorry. You poor thing. And the very second that they hear those words, then boom, they've got their fix, and they get this flood of the pity neuropeptide that their body is craving. And so once they get their fix, the cellular withdrawal stops and they can finally go back to work. So they manufactured the whole scenario, the whole interaction, just to get high on the pity. So once you see this, it's kind of hard to unsee. It's a complete game changer for how you interact with people. And it has helped me, honestly. As I was reading these books, I started looking at the relationships around me, at the people in my life. And so a lot of these frustrations that I've had, they started to kind of go away. I could see the things that I've done wrong in those relationships. And so I stopped judging those people, and I stopped judging even the difficult and attention seeking people that I've got in my life. I realized that we're not enemies. We are just chemical addicts looking for our next neuropeptide hit. Then I started seeing some beautiful things with this, because once you map someone's dominant social need, once you stop speaking to their logic and you start speaking to their chemistry, if you want to connect with someone, if you want them to drop their guard, or if you need their compliance, give them their fix. Identify their drug and give them their fix. If they need approval, validate them. If they need strength, let them lead. If they need pity, give them your undivided sympathy. Their guard will drop, and they will become incredibly open to whatever it is that you're trying to say to them. But carrying this, it comes with a price. Being able to see this. Once you see the world this way, it's hard to go back, because behind every mask of anger, behind the bragging or complaining, you'll start to see a scared child who formed a chemical survival script decades ago. You'll start to realize that everyone around you is hiding some form of deep, silent suffering. But there's something incredibly beautiful about having this empathy, because when you stop judging someone, you can finally start connecting with them. So I'm going to leave you with this challenge. Tomorrow, when you walk out into the world, when someone pushes your buttons, or they start bragging or they walk up and they start complaining, don't just start getting frustrated. Why don't you take time and pause, take a breath, ask yourself, what drug is this person's brain looking for right now? And then watch how the world around you changes. We're on this journey together, my friend. Let's start paying attention to the people around us and not just the noise.